Development at the Sheraton Resort Nadi. APRU Population Age Conference, which was held HIV infection, zero discrimination. Topics 2019, which was held in Nadi. Leadership Fiji, which he was invited. Apart from that, being a Fiji Medical Association journal and the
George. Good morning, all. It's a great privilege and honor to welcome
The Permanent Secretary for Health, Ms. Bernadette Welch. Haven't seen you in a long time. Last time I saw you was yesterday. The Chief Medical Advisor, Dr. Chemesa Tunrau, the Divisional Medical Officer Central, Dr. Devi Tangorniasi, Divisional Medical Officer Eastern, Dr. Dave Whippy, the Divisional Medical Officer Western, Dr. Susanna Kaulebo, and the Divisional Medical Officer Northern, Dr. Hari. The staff, the senior staff of the Ministry of Health and Medical Services, the Director of Human Resources, the Head of Human Resources, and your staff, and also the Head of Planning and your staff. I am very grateful to be here, and I say good morning and thank you for the opportunity to join you here today. Today, I was telling the interns when I went around, you're no longer a baby. When I went around and I said, the new interns, the one that took over your positions. So I said, when you're in school, you're a baby, but now you're no longer a baby, you're into the real world. Well, today I'm here to tell you that you're in the real world, but now you're not only in the real world, but you are doctors in the real world. And the whole aim of the 3 days is to prepare you for the expectations of Fiji. Because different countries are sovereign, and they have their own expectations of their doctors. And some countries are very, very big, that they run it as small health systems, particular to one district or province or to a city. Whereas in Fiji, because we are small, we have this National Health Service, and we have you all here today. We've just gone past, and we're looking behind us as we see measles and what measles has done in terms of stretching our health system. One thing that is very clear with the approach that we did to measles is that it was based on best practice, that we had some very good minds that are there behind you who run the operational part of the Ministry of Health, the gentleman and the lady that will be your bosses as the divisional medical officers in the next year or 2 or 3. But also within the Ministry of Health, we have the brains of the Ministry of Health, so as to say, that set the strategies, that think, and those at the moment are going to be run out of the office of Dr. Chemesa Tunrau. And the Permanent Secretary will obviously talk a little bit about it. But it's having people like Dr. Alicia, Dr. Tukana, Dr. Eric Rafai, that look at the numbers, crunch, and look at things that are happening from overseas and give advice on policy to the Permanent Secretary and the Minister for Health. We emptied our arsenal in ways in which we can ensure that we looked after the measles campaign very well. We know that we dug deep as a ministry, and we all did very well. Your role as interns were very important. You, in your last role as interns, you might be saying, last year during the measles campaign, I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital. I wasn't able to go out and vaccinate. But that function is so important. Because in the Ministry of Health, we have what we call normative function, which is the normal function of the Ministry of Health. It's delivering babies, making sure that we have children that turn up and are seen in the clinic. But also at the same time, we have to ensure that we are able to meet the demands of the extra normative function, which is the cyclones. And so at the moment, we have FEMAT deployed coming back from Southern Laos, 2 teams on 2 boats, 2 ships. One of them is our hospital ship, the MV Vegueti. We also have 4 female light teams that are traveling across as we speak to Wonolevu today to go and do work in Wonolevu and Taviuni. So that is the extra normative function. And so both are very important. Your role as interns last year in looking after the fort made sure that we could spare other staff to be able to go and do the vaccination campaign. This year, you will be part of that at the coalface. In 1875, as we all know the story, we had the measles, 40,000 we know passed on. I know for the data that exists in my island because back in the days, the only places where they could write things were those places that had missionaries. So my island, obviously, we had people who were missionaries or trained by missionaries, and there was about 280 who died and 279 who survived. Oneata had 100 people who survived and about 500 or 600 that passed on. But we also know that every major epidemic involving a specific virus, we need to be able to look at what we've done before and the lessons learned and how we can become stronger from it. The measles epidemic I keep on talking about because there are many learnings from it. At the height of the measles crisis, there was only 2 doctors in Fiji. There was no such thing as MOCA, no such thing as time off, no such thing as coming back tomorrow morning. They were the only 2. One of them was a ship surgeon. One of them was Dr. William McGregor, who later, in a few years' time, started the Fiji School of Medicine, or the Suva Medical School, in 1885, which became then the Fiji School of Medicine and the Fiji National University. It's interesting because majority of the lecturers from the University of Fiji that I've met with and talked to, they've also, nearly all of them, if they are local, are previous students of the Fiji School of Medicine. So irrespective of whichever medical school you go to, we share deep history together. And as I look through across this room, it is a far cry from those 2 doctors in 1875. There's 96 of you who are going to be inducted during the next 3 days to be proper medical officers. There's 60 female and 36 male. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. I've always said in my family that the girls are smarter than the boys. And I now realize that's probably true. Universal, we have now branched into that universal health coverage. And it is now the founding principle by which we run our health service. The principles are very simple. You can really just summarize it into 3. One is we ensure that no one is left behind. When our team went across to Kandavu, in 3.5 days, the 2 teams, one was based in Bunisea at the hospital with Dr. Rajiv being the surgeon based at the hospital, and another team based in Vevueti, on Vevueti, the ship in Kavala Bay. Dr. Gurniasi led our charge. They went through all the 75 villages. They inspected all the 75 villages. They disinfected all the schools. They checked all the water source and the sanitation facility. They gave purification tablets. In 3.5 days, they did all that. And we have a teams now working in the north under Dr. Hari because we've had that cyclone and the FEMAT going across. And you must remember that you will not leave no one behind, especially those who are on the fringes or the marginalized, those who are disabled, those who may be blind, those who may not have much in their pockets, the young pregnant mother, solo mom. Those are the ones that you must not forget. So we must make sure that we leave no one behind. We reach the unreached. The Mbanitakali went all the way to Onilau. We make sure that we will reach the unreached. The teams that are going up to work with Dr. Hari's team, they're going to go through the whole breadth of Unolevu, including Taviuni, Rambi, and Kioa. And for us, it doesn't matter the ethnicity of who we serve, because our guiding principle is the Hippocratic Oath. And the beginnings of the Hippocratic Oath, if you all remember, which you should, because you all said it just about a year ago, says, I consecrate my life to the service of humanity. And that consecration must be part and parcel of what you do. That compassion must be part and parcel of what you do. You said it, I didn't say it for you. You stood up and put your right hand, we didn't hold your right hand for you. But as a person who lives in the modern day where there's so many challenges, I urge you to remember that oath. That oath is a guiding principle of being a physician, ever since the time of Hippocrates till today, and it should never change. When it's 4:30 and there's a sick man that comes through the door, you will stay behind and make sure that that sick man is resuscitated. If it's early in the morning and you're coming at about 8 o'clock, and about 7 o'clock you meet an accident on the road, you're going to get off your car and make sure that you attend to those who have had an accident on the road, if you can help. Because that's a guiding principle in which we work as physicians, and the expectations that are here in the country that we serve. We must make sure that we meet and we reach out to all individuals and communities. Remember the fringes. And it includes the full spectrum of essential quality health services, from health promotion to prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, and palliative care. Some of you here, quite a lot of you, will be in towns and cities. You must remember that when you are in the city, for example, when Ili Thomas is in Nandi, you must remember that Lasike is in Onilau. That every day Lasike will be visiting a community in Onilau, a village in one of the 6 islands that make up Onilau. And therefore it's in my hope that Ili Thomas will also make sure that half day in a week he will go to a community in Nandi. He will visit an informal settlement. He will go to a suburb, because it's just not the work of the zone nurse anymore or the health inspector. We have to help. As physicians, as public health doctors, that's who you are, we are going to help. And I want you to do that. Please don't be comfortable in the city health center or the city hospital that you are in. If you're in Valley Level, please make sure that you go out into the informal settlements and participate in public health and health advocacy and health promotion. Because I've worked as a surgeon for the last 20 years, and I can tell you that I've never been excited about visiting the people as I am now. And my program, every afternoon I visit a community, because I've realized one important thing. Unless we go down to the community and talk to them, then we will reach nowhere. We will continue to receive so many people needing their legs to be amputated because of diabetes. We will continue to receive so many stroke victims or stroke patients into our hospitals and wonder about how we can rehabilitate them. We must reach out to the community. So I'm tasking you today, I'm charging you today, wherever you are, irrespective whether you're in a rural community or in a health center in the city, you will go out. And you will see to them, you will meet them, and you will make it a consistent part of your work in the next year or two as you are in the community. You will continually go out with the teams to the community. We have what in place what we call the 157 call or toll-free number for complaints. And these are the common complaints: delays and long waiting. As I was coming this morning, I got 2 phone calls from a big subdivisional hospital because patients couldn't get their folder. We need to change all this. We need to change it. The patient must be spending a lot more time with you as a doctor rather than waiting to be seen. And sometimes when I used to sit in the SOPD clinic, I used to wonder, why is it that they sit for 2 hours to see me for 10 minutes? I would rather they sit for 10 minutes to see me for 2 hours. The numbers doesn't make sense. So as you go into your health centers, as you go and you look at ways in which you can make the service more convenient, not for yourself, but for the people we serve. Look at ways we can make it more convenient to them. If we are sitting in a room that's nice and windy because it's got a fan, then we need to make sure that the patients in the waiting room have a fan. We need to make sure that we open the toilets and check it every morning to make sure that it's clean. Because if it's not clean, you as the medical officer need to tell the cleaners to make it clean. It has to be a place where you'll be willing to go and use yourself. And that's one thing I personally do as a minister when I go to places, when I go to health facilities and I need to use the bathroom, I use the patient's bathroom. Because I want to see what they are using. Because it is not fair if we have a better bathroom than the patients who come through the door. Because we are there to serve them. That is our role. I'm tasking you today, I'm charging you today to be the best advocate of the patient. And that includes in making sure that the facilities are nice and clean. We need to ensure that beginning with us, that our attitudes are right. That every morning you're going to wake up on the right side of the bed, never the wrong side. That every morning, whether it's raining or shining, you're going to go out there and give it your best. Because I learned one important thing as a surgeon. Irrespective of whatever you're facing, at the end of the day, the patient requires you to be at your best. If there are things in which you need support, for example, challenges that you face personally, please reach out to your supervisors, please reach out to the Minister of Health. We will ensure that there are pathways there to support you. But always make sure that you are at your best when you see patients. One thing that hit me when I graduated was that my degree didn't have my grades. And I'm so grateful it didn't. Have you checked your degree? Does it have your grades, like all your A's? Or no? What is it telling you? It tells us that when you get your degree, that you're already there. Right? What's happened in school doesn't matter anymore, because we live for today. And it's the same thing I want to ask you today. I know that you're bright. I know that you're committed. That's why you passed all your exams. That's why you went through your internship program, and you're here to be inducted as a medical officer. What I'm asking you to do is to look at today as day zero of your career. And remember that, in a way, put it into your mind, this concept that nothing really has happened. And that you're going to work very hard. You're going to continue to develop yourself with continued professional development. You're going to grow professionally and in your careers to be a better person. As you're aware, sometimes I go up and I join the audit at CWM with the surgeons. And after the audit, some of them will tell me, oh, you know what, that intern was a good intern. That intern is not so good intern. Today, I really don't care. Whatever they said, that's beside the point. As far as I'm concerned, you are here today. Whether they said to me you're a good intern or bad intern, that's beside the point. What I do know is you have what it takes to become a medical officer. That's why you're sitting here today. What I'm asking you to do, irrespective of whatever your grades were in school, how you did in your internship program, put it behind you. I want you today and going forth to reach for the sky and to give it your best and to make it part and parcel of who you are, so that whenever they talk about you, they will say it with a lot of reverence and respect and say, this is a guy who beat all odds, or this is a woman who's broken the glass ceiling. That's what I want you to do. If we all did that, if all the doctors in this room did that, if we all did that, all the 96 of you, including the DMOs that are here, just this group, if you did that this year, we will certainly be in a better shape. You have to be movers and shakers. You have to allow yourself to be inconvenient. As I said before, if it makes you inconvenient to come out of your consulting room, to go into the waiting room because somebody's finding it difficult to go into your room, please do it. Please remember the oath. Please remember those we serve. Remember that they are Fijians, and we exist as doctors because of them. God bless you, thank you, and all the best.